Imagine walking outside on a completely clear night. You look up at the vast, endless sky, and it's easy to feel incredibly small. For thousands of years, humans have stood under the same sky and quietly asked themselves, who am I? Or what is my place in all of this? We all yearn to understand who is the self within, where do we belong in all this? We are all suffering from discontent. We are always seeking something, though we may not always know what it is. Even the gods and goddesses in heaven are not content. After many births, they have attained the status of a god or a goddess, and they seem to have everything they desire, yet still they are not satisfied. So, let us understand what is the self, the Atman, through a story in Chandogya Upanishad. So it starts like this. Prajapati, the creator of the world, once said, the self is free from sin, free from old age, free from death, free from sorrow, and free from hunger and thirst. It is the cause of desire for truth and for commitment to truth. This self has to be sought for and thoroughly known. The person who has sought for and known the self attains all worlds and all desires. He basically sent out an invitation, as it were, come and learn from me, here in order to teach the nature of the self and to emphasize the need for self discipline to attain self knowledge. The gods and demons, on hearing of this, sent Indra and Virochna, respectively, as the representatives to inquire of the self from Prajapati and ask them to look into a vessel of water and tell him how much of self they could find. They answered, we see this, a whole self, even to the hair and to the nails. To this, Prajapati said, well, that is the self. It is immortal and fearless. It is Brahman. The two of them left then happy in mind. But Prajapati thought, there they go away, without having discovered, without having realized the self. Virochana came away with the conviction that the body was the self. But Indra did not return back to the gods. He was afraid and pestered with doubts and came back to Prajapati and said, Lord, when the body is well decorated, the reflection is also well decorated. When the body is in fine clothes, the reflection is also in fine clothes. When the body is neat and clean, the reflection is also neat and clean. Again, suppose a person is blind, then the reflection will show a blind body, injured in one eye when the body is injured in one eye, and mutilated when the body is mutilated. Therefore, I see no good in this theory. Prajapati then gave him a higher instruction about the self and said, he who goes about enjoying dreams, he is the self. That is the immortal, the fearless. This is the Brahman. We will talk about Brahman in the next video. But to give you some context, Brahman also means Atman. Indra then left happy in mind. But even before he returned to the gods, a doubt arose in his mind. He said that though the dream self does not become blind when the body is blind, or injured in one eye when the body is so injured, and is not affected by its defects, it is true, the dream self is independent of the body. But I find that even in my dreams, I am sometimes happy and sometimes unhappy. Sometimes I am in pain and sometimes I am crying. And sometimes I even see myself being chased by someone and I'm frightened. Prajapati said, the self is free from fear. So how could this fear come? It should not happen. If the self is subject to such limitations and unpleasant experiences, then it is not free and perfect. No, I cannot accept this answer. Prajapati gave a still high instruction. When a man fast asleep in total contentment, does not know any dreams, this is the self, this is the deathless, the fearless, this is Brahman. Indra departed, but was again filled with doubts on the way, and returned again and said, the self in deep sleep does not know himself, that I am this, nor does he know any the existing objects. He is destroyed and lost. I see no good in this. Prajapati, having found that Indra in each case could find out that this was not the ultimate truth about the self he was seeking, ultimately gave him the ultimate and final instruction about the full truth, about the self, and said, Indra, the body is mortal. It has been captured by death, yet It is the base of the self, which is immortal and formless. One who has a body is subject to both happiness and unhappiness. In fact, there is no end to happiness and unhappiness so long as one has a body. But when a person is free from the body, nothing good or bad can touch him. Prajapati says the body is the adhisthana, meaning resting place of the self. For the time being, the self chooses to live in this house, though the self is amartam, immortal, and a shariram, without a body. It identifies itself with the body and thinks it is mortal. The fact of delusion has to be recognized. We cannot ignore it. Prajapati says the air is formless, so also are clouds, lightning, and thunder. All these arise from the sky and assume their respective forms due to the heat of the sun. Here, the idea is that even though we don't see the self, it is always within us. The Upanishad compares it with air, clouds, lightning, and thunder. In winter, the sky is clear, there are very few clouds, and there are no strong winds or storms. But then, as summer begins, the temperature starts rising, and slowly the clouds gather. Then comes the storm, with their high winds and lightning and thunder. Here, the relationship of the self with the body is clearly brought out. The self is immortal and a sharira, without a body. But like lightning or clouds, the self is sometimes manifested in a form. With ordinary people, the distinction between the self and the body is not noticeable, but with an enlightened person, the distinction is quite conspicuous. In all his manner and his way of speaking, you see that the enlightened person is using his body as his instrument. He is always conscious that he is the self. He may be eating or drinking or talking or moving about like anyone else, but still, you see there is a difference. So, after all of Indra's doubts and questions, what is the Atman? As Prajapati finally revealed, it is not your reflection, it is not your physical body, because the body is mortal and will eventually perish. It is not your dreaming mind where you still feel fear and pain, and it is not the empty blankness of deep sleep. The Atman is the pure, immortal, and the formless self. It merely uses your physical body as a temporary resting place. Just like an instrument, when an enlightened person walks, talks, or eats, they know they are not the physical body doing the action. They are the immortal self, simply experiencing life through it. Think of it like a grain of salt. A grain of salt has no inner or outer. It is salty through and through. Similarly, the Atman doesn't have an inner or outer. It consists entirely of pure knowledge. It is the core of all creatures, the innermost essence. It can only be perceived by direct experience through meditation. It is when we are at the deepest level of existence. But this leaves us with one final question. If the Atman is the pure consciousness within you, how does it connect to everything else? When you look up at the vast night sky we talked about at the beginning, you might still feel small. But ancient wisdom suggests that the Atman inside you is actually deeply connected to the very same sky and to a larger universal reality known as Brahman. In our next video, we'll explore exactly how the self within relates to the universe above. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. This is Philosophy by Path signing off.